I want to play my vintage round. Okay, so round 3 coming up. Jägermaster, last seen playing blue, black, red, green, whatever that is. Let me check out the deck list on Goldfish, because that's pretty non-descriptive. Blightsea Colossus, so another paradoxical outcome deck, but with the red splash for deck Faden, and a green splash for Nature's Claim. They have Mind's Desire in their deck, which is pretty unusual. Wheel of Fortune in the main deck, and Time Twister, so they're using draw 7s to power the combos. And they have 2 Hercules Recalls in this main deck, 2 Hercules Recalls in the sideboard, so I guess what happened in the previous match is going to be repeating here. Damn it. The previous hand was an obvious mulligan, and this hand I think has to be a keep, but it's pretty bad against a combo leaning opponent. Because they get to do their unfair things and I'm not really disrupting them. My clock is not the fastest. I think Wasteland is too low impact. I would rather have any of my spheres, any of the lands that produce more than 1 mana, so that I can accelerate this draw. Follow up with like Hangerback Walker and Ballista in the same turn. Oh, this is not the paradoxical outcome deck anymore. Then potentially things could be great, because Steel Overseer in the mirror is pretty great, though. Wow, this is an explosive draw from them as well. This is trouble. This is definitely trouble. Well, I get to untap with Steel Overseer. I just write that to the bottom. Come on, Modo. Yeah, I did. I checked. So I can copy Overseer, Chief of the Foundry, Foundry Inspector. Wait, no, I cannot copy anything. I just have to run out a 2-drop. Because they cost 1 more, of course. So any of these I can X equals 1 them. And both of them synergize well with the Steel Overseer. I think I'll lead on Hangerback Walker actually, because Ballista doesn't get to shoot anything down here in a favorable way. And then this making a bunch of Thopters into pumping up the Thopters with my Steel Overseer, that's a nice interaction that could be helpful. And then, yeah, maybe I'll end up copying a Steel Overseer if they let me keep my board. And then we're board stalling with my board growing. They're like currently a little bit ahead on the board. This might indicate that they're either the same list that I'm running with one Chief of the Foundry in the main deck, or they're playing the Null Rod, more disruptive version. Okay, that doesn't do too much. Now they're out of cards. That seems pretty favorable. Okay, I'll take it, I think. Try to build this up until I make a lot more Thopters. Use my life total as a resource a little bit, though it's a pretty scary position with me being behind on the board, and I have to use this Ancient Tomb and this Metamorph a few more times. So I can Ballista for X equals 1 again, because it costs 3 out of my 4, which would allow me to Wasteland them, though that seems not very useful at the moment. I mean, it only helps against their X cards, which are Hangerback Walker and Ballista of their own, because other than that they can cast pretty much anything they want with double Foundry Inspector. Or I hold on to my Wasteland to use it to tap for mana on my side, as well as using it to kill my opponent's Mithras Factories. That's interesting. So if I copy something, I go to 8. That's a pretty scary position. Yeah, that's probably not something I can afford to do even. So I guess I want to do this for 1, and then I have the ability to animate Mithras Factory as a tapped creature so that it gets counters off of the Steel Overseer, or I can still add a counter onto my Hangerback, whichever one turns out to be more useful in the exact moment. And then yeah, my life total is under a lot of pressure, but I'm ahead on the board now, and my opponent's life total also takes some pressure from mana creep being on the board. Damn. I guess they do just have to... No, they just name Overseer, and my Ballista is not actually big enough at the moment to shoot it down, though I can grow my Ballista. If I activate in response, am I under too much pressure? Then they can name Ballista, attack with everything. That's probably fine. Yeah, I think I have to activate in response, but it's not a great spot for me. It was a pretty good top deck, and this having 2 toughness instead of 1 is actually pretty big blowout. Yeah, that's the reason that Chief of the Foundry is like much better than Lodestone Golem in this matchup for sure, and then like in other matchups that might also be the case. So I like that change that Montolio introduced. Seems pretty smart. So now they can't lock me out of Steel Overseer activations permanently. Either they name Ballista, then their Phyrexian Revoker sticks around, but my Overseer is still active, or they name Overseer, then I get to eventually shoot down the Revoker. But their attacks are still pretty profitable here. Well, not that profitable if I make this trade and get 4 Thopters out of the deal, yeah. Yeah, they might eventually overwhelm me with more creatures. So no Ballista ink for me. Ravager would be great, so that I can sacrifice this Hangerback and open up the Thopters. Otherwise I'm sitting here and waiting for them to make an attack into my Hangerback, and then they will only make that attack when it is lethal or puts me at too low of a life total. So it's still a pretty difficult spot. Can Metamorph. Metamorph costs me at the very least 4 life though, so that is pretty scary. Though then with 4 creatures on my side, they don't really have favorable attacks. I go to 6. And what would I be copying? Probably just Chief of the Foundry, because it allows all my creatures to outclass theirs. Or just keep passing the turn with Mishra's Factory open. No, I play a bunch of formats, and yeah, today is Vintage Challenge Day. I'll play Pauper tomorrow when the Pauper Challenge is happening. But yeah, I play a bunch of Legacy as well, and then whatever is relevant to the tournaments at the time. So yeah, if you only know me from Pauper, then that might be surprising to you, but yeah, I do play a lot of other stuff as well. I'm not actually that much of a Pauper specialist. I mean, specialist in the sense that I know the format pretty well, but not in that I specialize in it. So my instinct is to copy Chief of the Foundry and keep the board under control, but I'm pretty weak to them drawing. Oh no, that has to be a decent thing to be doing though. But yeah, my life total situation is pretty precarious, and if they find, I guess if they find Walking Ballista, it's not the end of the world for me. Well, probably is the end of the world for me, because they can jump attack with their Phyrexian Revoker, and I'm kinda priced into blocking it at some point, and their Ballista opens up. So either Chief of the Foundry or Steel Overseer of my own, but the Steel Overseer offers more potential to be a good blocker immediately, because it's already 3-4 on defense, and all my other blockers also get better. Okay, so Sacrifice Outlet for me would be great, because then I suddenly have 5 or 6 Thopters, and I kill them in 1 attack in the air with like 3 Power Thopters or 4 Power Thopters with this, and 2 counters from this. Yeah, definitely not adding a counter. This is for 2 life. my life total is a lot more precious than that. Can I start attacking? I have 4 creatures on defense. Probably can, probably have to. And that also makes their mana crypt more painful. A little bit weak to Wasteland there, because they can remove one of my blockers with Mishra's Factory, but even then I should still barely survive, and then the attack back when they make an Alpha Strike into my board is going to kill them as well. Okay, so there's finally a target for my Wasteland, though Wasteland is currently also paying for the Mishra's Factory's activation, so it has some useful applications. Now the Hangerback Walker threatens lethal, because it can turn into an 8-power creature. So they need to make at very least 1 block, and if I send like 2 more, they need to make at least a 2nd block, so then they go down to 3 creatures. Or I send everything. I think I'll just send the Hangerback Walker for 1 more turn, and then next turn I'll Alpha Strike. Can Wasteland? Yeah, that seems profitable, because then they still have to throw one of their other creatures away, so they end up with 3 creatures against my 3. And even though I would have to take pain to activate the Mishra's Factory, yeah, they're still like losing board position. My board is growing, and next turn I can go for an Alpha Strike that threatens to kill them. Especially if Mana Crypt ends up dealing them damage. Yeah, nice, nice. Now I have a ton of lethal attackers. Don't Precursor Golem me or something. Or Ballista. Ballista would be awful. Wait. Oh no, I guess it still doesn't really matter. Does it? Okay, that does not really matter. I mean, it would be scary in the long run. I guess it's fine for them still. Yeah, maybe it does matter. Because they can make 4 blocks on my 4 creatures, and no, wait. No, I can activate this for damage, and then I kill them with 5 attackers. So everything's fine. Yeah, I have 5 attacking creatures, because I can still afford the damage here. Ballista would have been more scary, because then my life total is also under threat. So yeah, this is 7 powers, 8, 6, 5, and this is 4, so all of them are lethal. So that it ends up fine. Yeah. I mean, even if I did nothing, I still had a 50-50 shot of killing them this turn, and then a 50-50 shot of killing them each following turn, so like 75% win rate over 2 turns, and so on and so forth. Because they need to keep winning coin flips. Yeah, no reason to pass up on board lethal. There we go. Okay. That was quite the nice turnaround, not in terms of the game. I was kind of always ahead. Well, my life total was under pressure, but my board position was always slightly ahead. But in the sense that I like expected to get crushed, because my opponent played Paradoxical Outcome last week, and then we were actually playing the mirror, and my hand was a lot better set up for the mirror than it was for Paradoxical. So my expectations were immediately reversed there by them playing something different that I thought they weren't. Okay, so same sideboard plan once again. On the draw, there's not really a point of keeping either of these in the deck. On the play, you can consider those. Or the Null Rod. Like, Null Rod and Spyglass are like pretty close to each other in utility and can end up being useful in different spots. I did end up spending way too much time on game 1 once again. These games are pretty complicated and a lot of combat and sequencing decisions to be made, so it's not always easy to figure them out quickly. My opponent just had nothing to do. They were just sitting there with their creatures, playing defense and hoping they find enough resources to overrun me. But like, I had to make decisions every turn, and then now I'm at a much lower amount of time. So if we play like a few more complicated Ravager against Ravager matchups or something, then maybe time becomes an issue. But oftentimes the mirror just ends very quickly as well. So that can or cannot turn out to be a problem. We will see. My hand is very explosive. Well, it's not that explosive because my only spell is Ballista, but I do have a ton of mana here. Their hand looks explosive as well. Please be a 1 toughness creature. No. Well, no 2-drop from them. That is interesting because all of their cards cost 1 less. Cost 2 less, I mean. So wastelanding them seems a little bit appealing, but I would want my Ballista to be X equals 3, so it sticks around after shooting one of these down. So that would indicate like this plus Lotus. And wastelanding them would be like Lotus, Pearl, X equals 2, Wasteland. Then I have a 2/2 Ballista against their 2 3/2s. I would likely just shoot something down, and then they end up with a single Inspector against my empty board. That's not such a great advantage for me. Though the 1/1 Ballista on the board is also not necessarily useful, only if I top deck a Ravager or something to put additional counters onto it, because activating the Ballista is pretty far away still. Well, still feels like Ballista for 3 is like the higher payoff. Basically, I want to either shoot one of these down or wasteland them or both, because I want to stop them from casting Precursor Golem, Sky Sovereign, Wurmcoil Engines, all of those blowout cards, because we have already established that they don't have a 2-drop in their hand, unless they slow rolled Revoker to figure out what they want to name with Revoker, but like any of their 2-drops would have been free on the previous turn, so it doesn't make a lot of sense for any of them to be stuck in their hand. Like Steel Overseer and Ravager would have already hit the board. So that means their hand has to either be heavy on lands, or they have some expensive haymakers. And I really want to slow down those expensive haymakers. So that's why I went for this line now, and then next turn I get to wasteland them and put them even further away from Precursor and Wurmcoil, assuming they don't immediately cast them off of a second Ancient Tomb or Mithras Workshop. Okay, so another land, but it only taps for 1, so they now have access to 4 mana for a single spell, or they can cast a bunch of cheap stuff, which we assume they don't have much of, like different cheap spells. Okay, they do have a 2-drop that they held on to, which they either they top decked it or they kept it in hand because they wanted to know what is reasonable to name, which makes some sense. It allows them to put less pressure on me, but it now gives them more selection. Okay, I think I'll Spyglass them. At the very least, I can already name Mishra's Factory, so that they cannot attack me with it. Dismember, that's annoying, because I wanted to Steel Overseer and, well, at least they're taking 6 damage and trading 1 for 1 for my Overseer, but that's still annoying. Mishra's Factory. Also, well, I guess if I wasteland, they might not float. We'll see. Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say it's annoying that I have to cast the Steel Overseer with their Ancient Tomb still on the board, instead of being able to wasteland, switch phases so that they don't have mana floating anymore, and then Steel Overseer. But because of my Mithras Workshop, I was kind of forced into doing the Steel Overseer and the Spyglass in the same phase. But yeah, they decided to not float mana here, So now they're unable to dismember on my turn, and they have to spend an extra mana on their own turn to cast the dismember. So that slows them down even more and deals some extra damage to them, though obviously tapping the Ancient Tomb and then they end up not wanting to cast the dismember, that would have also dealt unnecessary damage to them. So I can understand why they would make that decision. It just works out for me that they didn't have mana floating for a dismember. And now their own turn is pretty disrupted through that. It's not so great for me. Because now they have dominating board position. The Mishra's Factory has a new usage because they can sacrifice it to the Ravager. I can no longer really block favorably anywhere. So I kinda do need to just top deck like my Sky Sovereign, Precursor Golem. Some card that allows me to catch up on the board. I would have expected that this Phyrexian Revoker attack into my Ballista was favorable to them, because if I block and they move the counter over, they end up with 2 3/2s and my Ballista is gone for no value because I can't use the ability still. God damn it. Oh my god. That's disgusting, because I have Spyglass on that, so it doesn't even do anything. Yeah, I still have to top deck Precursor, I think. If I draw Precursor, I'm in a reasonable position. If I don't, I'm just getting run over here. Maybe Hangerback Walker, but it might not be in time anymore. Because Hangerback Walker is a great blocker, but they already have so much pressure on me with Ravager, moving counters around, all that stuff. Okay, sure. So yeah, they seem to be playing pretty much exactly the same deck list that I am, and boarding in the same way that I am, so it just comes down to who has the better draw and who plays it better. And here my opponent just had a lot more threat dense of a draw. I was aware of the fact that my hand was pretty flooded and reliant on the single Walking Ballista being the card to dominate it all, and it ended up not being the case. It traded 1-for-1 and then didn't really pan out much more after that. Okay, now I'll make this block. I mean, they can still make the block unfavorable to me by moving counters over, but it does set me up reasonably well to top decking Precursor. Come on. That allows me to copy one of their guys. It's actually not that awful. But my life total is still under a lot of pressure. At least they're out of cards. So if I sacrifice Spyglass, then both of our Mishra's Factories, like if I go Ravager, I can sacrifice my Spyglass, both of our Mishra's Factories become unlocked. Though I can unlock them during combat so that I have a blocker, and they don't. Alternatively, I just use the Foundry Inspector because it's slightly higher statted. Now I think copying Ravager has to be slightly better, because I have a lot of tricky options there where my opponent might run into a trap. Like I activate this, then suddenly I have a 5 or 6 or something, 6/6 factory that I can like move counters over, all that stuff, like block, move counters over. Then it's, oh no. Well, never mind then. Okay, they just use it right away. Okay, then it might not be that bad for me. I mean, I like the Mishra's Workshop, of course, as a painless source of a lot of mana, but I think if they had kept Open Wasteland for my Mishra's Factory, that would have actually been much worse for me. Maybe they're missing that fact that I can activate it in combat, or they're willing to just sit here in a kind of equal, slightly favorable to them board position. Like basically they're one creature up, but I get to time my Mishra's Factory activation and I have one extra mana source. So they're like pretty ahead, but their attacks are not very favorable despite them being ahead. pretty interesting. Maybe that attack is fine for them actually. I mean, I can try to trade the fronts or just the body of Ravager forward and then move the counters over to my Mishra. They can disrupt that by making this a 6-5 with this, and the Ravager itself getting sacrificed. 6-5, I can't really match that much power and toughness. Alternatively, sack this. I activate this. Yeah, the problem is the 6-5 at the very least ends up trading with my factory, so then we're like, if they go all in, 5-6. So I was considering like a double block of like my 2-2 and another 2-2, and then they put probably the Mishra's factory first, and it just ends up trading. Then I lose factory, they lose Foundry Inspector, I have a 2-2 Ravager against their 1-1 Ravager with pretty even board. So that works out. If they order the Ravager first, I just let that happen as well and move the counters over. That's an okay board, probably slightly worse. And if they try to move counters over, So I think I definitely want to sacrifice this. It gives them one extra artifact to sacrifice because they can turn this into an artifact creature. But yeah, this is the most trickiness and also ends up being pretty reasonable for me, I think. Like if they go all in and sacrifice their entire board to trade for my entire board, like my 6-6 Mishra's Factory trading for their 6-5 Foundry Inspector, then I'm like at 2 Ancient Tombs against their 1 Ancient Tomb, and neither of us really have a board. Would be pretty interesting if it comes down to that, basically like burning everything to the ground. My Mishra's Factory is summoning sick though I think that don't... Wait, does it change the calculation? Maybe I messed this up. Yeah, it's only... No, as 5-5 it's still fine against their potential 6-5. Yeah, I think I thought that I could tap this for its ability, but it was only played this turn, so kind of missed that. I hope it doesn't end up backfiring, because then they can hold on to one additional artifact, so maybe I end up behind in that exchange actually. Pretty interesting combat. Yeah, this matchup is pretty intricate when no one is getting ran over. Like sometimes you just die, they go like Foundry Inspector, Steel Overseer, Ballista, and you can't do anything. Or like you get double Wastelanded plus Trinisphere or something, and you just die. Okay, so they're willing to fight over this. And sometimes you have these super intricate resource management, Ravager, combat, trick, a lot of complicated math, racing situations, shaping the size of your creatures profitably, all that stuff. Yeah, so I guess that is exactly the situation that I had expected, where like he ends up with nothing and I end up with nothing. 6-5, so I have to sacrifice this, and then I have 5 power in front of it, and then it's like Ancient Tomb against Ancient Tomb, and I'm 2 mana ahead, but I'm like much lower in life, so my Ancient Tombs can't even be activated necessarily. So who top decks better is going to be a crucial part, and then also the spells have to be impactful enough that you can afford to pay the life total for them. But yeah, this was basically the position that I envisioned would happen if my opponent is willing to go all in here. And the alternative was that they just trade their Foundry Inspector for my Mishra's Factory, and we both get to keep our Ravagers, which I thought was slightly better for my opponent because they have Factory plus Ravager against my Ravager. So this feels like a slight mistake from them, but it does just come down to top decking. Wow, that could potentially be exactly the spell that you want to be casting, but I can't cast it yet, so we'll see. Okay, well, this only trades damage, though it's pretty scary against me needing my Ancient. Wow. Okay, I guess it's the last spell that I'm casting this game, but it should be a good one. Well, I can like top deck land plus another spell, but for now I'm just locked out of my Ancient Tombs. Have to hope they with here for a little bit so that they don't have multiple attackers threatening lethal. The Mishra's Factory is already threatening lethal, but it always runs into one of my 3/3s. Pretty sick game. So yeah, like trading hits with the Mishra's Factory would have actually been pretty bad for me, because both of us take 2 damage, but I was already behind in the life, and I needed my Ancient Tombs more desperately than they did. So I'm pretty happy I got to cast the spell before any of those exchanges happened. Any of those trades of Mishra's Factory against Ancient Tomb damage for the activation. But now it's a pretty tough position for my opponent. Like, finding another land and a Walking Ballista, for example, could still close it out. Hangerbreak Walker on defense is still very threatening, because the Thopter token threatens to fly over if I attack into it. Like, a bunch of stuff could still go wrong, but for now I'm putting a lot of pressure on their life total, and the Ancient Tomb on their side is also starting to become a liability. And like another Strip Mine or Wasteland for me could close it out, where I'm cutting them off of casting spells anymore and also taking the Mishra's Factory away. Let's see what they come up with. Okay, so no attack, no spell being cast. And I think I always have to attack with 2. They can trade their Mishra for 1 by going like activate, block. Activate, block, pump it to a 3/3, then they take 5 damage and kill one of my guys. But here they get, I'm not certain how they want to win still. I think Ballista plus land is the only way for them to win, where they go to 2 and then I die to the Ballista damage. Yeah, because Mishra doesn't really do it anymore. Yeah, strange game, very interesting game. Especially the Ravager phase of all of this. Still think the trade for just Foundry Inspector against my Mishra would have been slightly more beneficial to my opponent, because they knew about my hand and they end up with slightly lower resources after everything gets run down to the ground. Okay, we win. Nice. That was a pretty intense game.